I'm just like,
And then just say,
well, Happy New Year, everybody. It's great to see you. We had a lot of people I recognize, of course, who were here at previous forums. So, to come out on a cold January night to share your priorities, listen a little bit to us, but I promise it'll be much more of you than us. But really grateful to see everybody. And again, Happy New Year. Here's the plan, okay? So one, I want to apologize. I think there was a miscommunication, and the town had posted that it started at 6. So I believe there were five or six people who have been here for like 35 minutes waiting. So one, I apologize. We really want to be respectful of everybody's time. So what we'll do is, and I think it's Darlene, Susan, Tammy, Mary and Elena and Christine, is we'll have them right up first, okay? After we do our little quick preamble. Does that seem reasonable to everybody? Just because they've been sitting here for so long. Okay. Great. And again, my apologies to them. So here's what, if this works for you, what we'll do is we have two more state reps. One more coming. Yeah. So Representative Sanchez had just had surgery a day or two ago and is not going to be able to make it. He represents mostly Hartford, but a section of West Hartford. Representative Gibson is on his way and got a flat tire. He texted us the photo, so he's telling the truth. And he will be here late, but he is coming here, okay? So we have two more. I just want you to not lose sight that we have a larger delegation, which I think is actually pretty good because we have more people in the building, in the Capitol, who care about West Hartford, right? Because we have, more state reps. So anyways, my name is Derek Slapp. State Senator for the 5th State Senate District, which includes all of West Hartford, almost all of Farmington. Just the section right around Yukon Health is, ironically, that's the closest to my house, but is not in my district. And then some of Bloomfield, kind of the north in the western section of Bloomfield. Anyway, and then all of Burlington. So what I thought I'd do is we'll do introductions, we'll do committees. Some of our committees are new, to us at least, so that makes a difference as to what we're going to be spending a lot of time on, and maybe we'll tick off one or two legislative priorities, right? We'll just do that relatively quickly, and then typically what we've done is we want to make sure that people who are watching this live on West Hartford's public television station can hear. So if you don't mind coming up to the podium there, and you can share your, it can be a question, it can be just a comment, you can vent if you want, that's totally allowable and encouraged, but just keep in mind, we're going to be at this until 8, and we're trying to get as many people, right, we want to make sure as many of you as possible have a chance to voice your thoughts. And of course, this doesn't end in terms of the interaction and engagement tonight. As you know, all of us are super responsive on email, phone call, cell phone, you name it. So we have information over there at the table. You can sign up for e-newsletters. There is also a great, is it the major issues? Yeah, it's a put together by a nonpartisan office called the Office of Legislative Research. So these are people who are, subject matter experts in a number of different topics and committees. And we have a bunch of copies. I know some of you, Bob, I see you and Carol have it. So great. If we run out, we can get you more. But it's a really good resource to show you kind of some of the big issues that are coming up. All right. So anyway, I'll just list off some of the committees that I'm serving on. One big priority for me, and then we'll just go down the line and we'll get to it. So I am returning as the Senate Chair of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. And so, as many of you know, we have joint committees in Connecticut. So unlike Washington, where there's a Senate committee and a House committee, they each pass bills, and then they have to reconcile the differences. Maybe that's one reason they don't get much done down there. I don't know, but we do it differently. And most of the bills that we pass are bipartisan, and they're bicameral, right? Even up through the committee process. So for each of the committees, we have a Senate chair and a House chair. And then we have ranking members and other things. So anyway, so I'm the Senate Chair of the Higher Education Committee, Vice Chair of the Public Safety Committee. I have never served on the Public Safety Committee before. I'm eager to learn, but so Vice Chair of that. I'm also on kind of a new committee. They split the GAE, which is Government Administration and Elections Committee, into two. One is still going to do elections things, and I'm not on that one anymore. And then the other one is going to be more government oversight. And so I'll be a member of the Government Oversight Committee, and then I'm also a member of Public Health, and then on appropriations as well with, I was going to just call you Tammy, but Representative Exum, Tammy, and then Jillian, Representative Gilchrist, also the three of us serve on the Appropriations Committee. So one of my big issues this session, there actually had an op-ed in the Hartford Current this morning, and there was a nice article written about it, is really want to pass kind of landmark legislation around making our local schools, colleges, and universities more affordable. So we have a public scholarship system program in Connecticut. It's called the Roberta Willis Scholarship, and it's named after a longtime House member who was a real champion for higher education. And we have about 2/3 of the students in Connecticut who are eligible for that scholarship don't get it because we don't fund it nearly enough. And so that's a big problem. Our neighboring states do a much better job of investing in higher education when it comes to affordability and scholarships. And these are for, by the way, students who are, middle income, low income, really need the assistance. And it's if they go to local schools. So by that I mean any of the, southern, right, central, western, eastern, or there's additionally 9 private schools, University of Hartford, St. Joe's are 2 of them who, Yale and Wesleyan do not participate in the program, okay? So 9 other private schools do. If the students go to these schools, we know they are much more likely to stay in Connecticut, right? The stats are irrefutable. And they stay here, they have families here, they grow careers here, et cetera, right? And so it's really important to stop the brain drain for economic development, et cetera. So that's going to be, you can probably tell I'm passionate about it. Senate leadership, and I know House leadership, I don't know. I expect that they would be very supportive as well. And so excited to work on that, and we'll see where it goes. We started today, and we end in June, so it's a long session. All right, I am going to stop filibustering. That's what we call it when not Republicans, I should say. Republicans often filibuster, but that's just because they're in the minority. When politicians talk too long, it's called filibustering. So anyways, all right. Tammy Exum, Representative Exum, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. I will not filibuster nearly as long. I'm Tammy Exum. I represent the 19th District, which is West Hartford and a portion of Avon. The majority of my district is comprised of West Hartford. And I am the Vice Chair of Appropriations, and I'm also serving for the first time as the chair of the Subcommittee for Appropriations for Education. And I'm also a deputy majority leader, which means I'll screen some bills when they come through. And that's really looking at them and helping to make decisions around whether or not the bills make it to the floor. I'm also the co-chair, or one of the tri-chairs of a committee about which I'm really passionate, called, I affectionately call it TCB, but it's Transforming Children's Behavioral Health Policy and Planning Committee, which is why you see it needs a nickname, TCB, which means taking care of business. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And I also serve on the Autism Spectrum Disorder Advisory Committee as well. So those are the roles, and what I am really focused on, one of my main priorities is children's behavioral health and the issues that come with that. And to give you a little bit of background, in 2022, that was our priority within the House. It was our major piece of legislation in which about $300 million was put into, and I led the work around writing that bill. And when we finished, one of the things I knew at the time, and I still consider myself at that point relatively new, I recognize oftentimes we would write these big bills, but then they wouldn't necessarily be held up over time. And I think it's really important to do so. So as the final piece of that, we created this committee. And so now this committee is operationalized and staffed, and we're doing some really wonderful work. We have these, you may have read about children in the emergency departments, and I think that got the attention of a lot of people, but the needs and the urgency to be addressed happened well before that, and that got the attention. And then it was, what do we do from here? And it turns out we have a lot of great services, but a lot of them are siloed, some underfunded, just so many different issues. And this committee, we really look at and work these issues. And two of the things that I'm really proud of that we're able to make sure receive funding and remain stable are the urgent crisis centers, where they're 23 hours a week. The Village is an example of one that has one that instead of the kids going to the emergency departments, now they can go there, get immediate resources, and they also now can have ambulances transport them there as opposed to the emergency department. Maybe we can mitigate needing to be at a more acute level later. And then also 24/7 services, and that's making sure we still have those emergency services available. One of the things that, and I'm sure Rep. Gilchrist is going to agree with this, reimbursement rates. We had a rate study done around Medicaid, and we understand we are not comparable to our neighboring states, and we're having a hard time getting providers. And so one of the things we really need to do is look at pieces of the puzzle such as that. And I could go on and on and on about this because it's huge. The bill was huge. The issue is huge. But I am very passionate about that. And it's so good to see so many of you out here. I'm always proud to represent West Hartford. And this is one of the reasons why you participate, you're involved, you come out, you care, and you're so supportive. And I want to thank you for that. Oh, and one last thing I have to say. So many of you may or may not be aware that I lost my husband last year very suddenly. He had a massive heart attack called the Widowmaker. And one of the things that we were able to do legislatively is we learned that there was a test called the coronary calcium scan that the medical examiner who performed his autopsy said, had he had that, we would have known about that blockage most likely, and he would have required a stent. So we were able to pass legislation regarding the coronary calcium scan to have coverage by the insurance companies, and that certain insurances will cover it. More importantly for me, the test is relatively inexpensive, but not completely, so it's about $125. But what was really important was that people are now aware of it, and we continue to advocate and build out that information. So I will be working very actively on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jillian Gilchrist. I'm a state representative for the 18th District, which is a portion of West Hartford. And I just want to echo, it's so great to see so many of you here who I've seen before, because you do come out and you advocate. And also just want to recognize the amazing colleagues I have, because we really are lucky to have such a fantastic team here in West Hartford. So I serve as chair of the Human Services Committee. I also serve on the Appropriations Committee, the Public Health Committee, and the Judiciary Committee. And the issues I want to talk about first and foremost is the state budget. I'm sure you've seen in the news conversations about what are referred to as the fiscal guardrails. Certainly, Connecticut needs to continue to pay off the debt that we accumulated over 70 or 80 years, but we can't do so at the expense of services today. And so I am committed to adjusting what are called the fiscal guardrails so that we can invest in Connecticut going forward. Second is Medicaid rates. So as the Human Services Chair, we are very focused on Medicaid. What is nearly a third of Connecticut residents receive their health care through Medicaid, and 1 in 3 children receives their health care through Medicaid in the state of Connecticut. And yet many of the rates, which means the pay that we give to healthcare providers, hasn't been adjusted since 2007, and we actually pay 50% of 2007 rates. And so this is both an access issue. We have folks who cannot access the healthcare they need, and it's a workforce issue because we are paying healthcare providers so woefully low that we are having difficulty employing folks in the state of Connecticut. And in a state like Connecticut, they can just quickly go over to New York, Rhode Island, or Massachusetts, which is what they're doing. And then finally, I'm very committed to women's health and safety issues. I co-chair the Reproductive Rights Caucus, and so we will have a package. I also chair the Endometriosis Working Group, and we will have some policy recommendations, and then also some policies regarding preventing sexual assault, domestic violence, and human trafficking. So, thank you.
Hi, everyone. We're almost there. I'm going to go quickly and thank you all for being here and can't wait to hear your priorities and what we can do to best serve our town. I'm Kate Farrar. I am a state representative that serves the 20th district, which is Southern West Hartford and Elmwood and also Western Newington. And in serving with my colleagues here, I think you can tell we really care about not just working on behalf of the issues you're going to hear about, but just coming up with solutions. And that's what we want to do with you all tonight. Just to clarify, because I think it's really important, we did open session today. We started a new 2-year term. This is often referred to as the quote unquote long session, which means we are in session from January to June. And that means we are just at the point where we're getting started in getting bills submitted, committee meetings started, hearings started, and that's why your participation is so pivotal because we still have an opportunity to put bill ideas forward, and we want to make sure that you can get involved in the hearing process as the legislative session goes along. For me, in regards to a lot of the time and energy that I put in at the Capitol and Legislative Building, one of the roles that I have going into this term is I am chair of something called the Early Childhood Care and Education Fund. This is a fund that we set up last year in legislation that I led on early childhood education in this state. Similar to a lot of needs of families, early child care is a main cost driver that really is a real challenge for so many of our families. We know that nearly 40% of Connecticut families cannot make ends meet, and housing and childcare are the most significant costs that they face. And so our task is really to make sure that we bring down those costs, but also in recognizing that the most pivotal brain development happens between birth and 5. It's on us to make sure that we're supporting kids at those youngest ages so we can make sure that we're preventing some needs that they might have down the line. So in that role as chair of the Early Childhood Care and Education Fund, I'll be also leading the early childhood bill this session so that we can move further towards those investments that are so needed in that sector. I am also a deputy majority leader with Representative Exum, and that means we work as a team to review all the bills that come to the House floor. I'm also taking on a fun role of chairing our internship committee in the House, and as a prior intern, I'm very excited about that role. And in regards to my committees, I continue to serve on the Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Committee, which really is the revenue side of our budget, and I will be continuing to fight for fixing our upside-down tax system on that committee and fighting for a statewide child tax credit. Also, I serve on the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee with Senator Slapp. But finally, I serve on the Transportation Committee. And transportation is such an important issue for our town and across our state. And I'm really dedicated to making sure that we are really making policy changes and investments to make our communities healthier and safer, and welcome your thoughts on that as well. So that kind of sums up where I've been spending and will be continuing to spend my time in this term. But again, more than anything, we want to hear what you all have on your minds and how we can be most helpful, not just tonight, but moving forward as your state representatives and senators. So thanks, everyone.
All right. One more committee I just wanted to mention that I forgot because it's a brand new committee, and so this may come up as throughout the evening, but I don't know if any of you else are serving on the special education. No. Okay. So there's a new committee that was formed. It's about special education, essentially, and trying to ensure that well, I hope that towns get more assistance paying for special education, that we do a better and fairer job around special ed. Even if you're not directly impacted by special education, you are through your property taxes. It's a real cost driver. It's a big issue. So anyway, that's something that we could talk more about. Okay, as promised, not any particular order, but Darlene, is Darlene here? There's Darlene. Okay, and then why don't we have Susan on deck and then Tammy? Okay, and these are people who showed up almost an hour ago, so we appreciate it. Darlene, great to see you. Come on up.
Okay, is this on? My name's Darlene Boré. I'm here because I have a son, Ben, who's 23 years old with profound autism. When he was born, autism was 1 in 500. The CDC says it's now 1 in 36. Of the people who have autism, 25% have profound autism. And I'm here on behalf of other families in West Hartford and across Connecticut. Because he's 23, he's graduated from the public school system into adult land. And what happens in adult land is for people with disabilities, there's day programs, there's group homes, that type of thing. But none of that was set up with autism in mind. It was set up with other disabilities in mind. And so now in Connecticut, they routinely reject people with profound autism. So my son was rejected from day programs saying, we don't know what to do with that. And same thing with group homes. And we're hearing from everybody across the state. This is what they do. Instead of saying, oh, this is a whole deluge of people with autism coming into our system, let's figure this out. They say, no, we don't want anything to do with that. And they're getting away with it. And so we have a simple ask. DDS doesn't keep track of the amount of people they serve with autism. Other states do. So they're able to say 80% of who we're serving has autism. So we need to have programs that serve people with autism. They don't do that. And we've talked to them. We've had meetings with them. They won't do it. So this letter is on behalf of parents of adult children with profound autism. We are deeply concerned about the lack of transparency and data regarding the individuals served by Department of Developmental Services. Understanding the scope of need is essential to ensure appropriate resources and support are provided. We're asking for your support in introducing a bill that requires DDS to track and report the number of individuals with autism they serve, specifically those, including those with an IQ of 69 or below. This data is critical for developing targeted policies and addressing the unique challenges faced by this vulnerable population. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Darlene. We're all talking up here because I do believe that would be human services, and so consider it done. The bill will be introduced.
Yeah.
There's more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Floor is yours, and thank you again, Darlene, and that's basic transparency issue, it seems like. So we'll introduce that bill, and I think we'll have a lot of co-sponsors here at this table. So, okay.
Okay, I've got another one for you then. I'm Sue Prehart, and I'm the one who came 2 years ago and told you that my son was in crisis, and it has only gotten worse. And it is a nonstop, never-ending battle to get my son out of really the incarceration that he is in right now. So I'm coming to you to ask for your help to legislate DDS. Once they have that information about how many people they are not taking care of, I need them to actually come up with a plan. I have sat in RAC meetings. You have to understand, I have been on a RAC committee for 2 years. I have in a RAC committee with tape been told by the commissioner, Sue, why don't you just send me an email and we're going to talk about this lack of housing for our highest level of needs individuals. He doesn't return emails. He doesn't return phone calls. It's this lack of response is how DDS has avoided taking responsibility for what their mandate is. They are responsible for providing for those who cannot provide for themselves. My son used to have the ability to go outside and play in a park. My son used to have the ability to go to a pool. Because he is with staff who are not, in their own defense, they are not well trained to handle severely autistic, nonverbal individuals. And so they let him sit on the couch. And he has sat on that couch for 2 years, and now he can't go outside. We can't take him for a hike. They have nothing of interest for him at a day program. And, there are options. Darlene has this great option of like trying to get people to this house, to this day program. And the agency can just say no. And so they do. So they don't have the staff that wants to do anything with my son. And behaviorists come in and they'll come up with recommendations, but these people have no obligation to follow them. There is no other group home in the state of Connecticut right now for my son to go to. He is in Wyndham, that is 50 minutes away. We could reintroduce him. We know how to do ABA. We've been doing with him for his entire life, but he is so far away that we cannot do it. This is the commissioner's job, to come up with a plan. My son is the beginning of the way. There are hundreds of kids behind us. There is no plan. That is what the legislature can do. And I want to remind you that they returned millions of dollars last year from their budget because they didn't have a way to spend it. I just want to leave with one story. The wonderful people at JCL went to go visit my son. We talked to them. We asked them, just look at my son, go visit him in the group home. Can we not? We offered to buy a house for them. We would take on the full responsibility of the property management. They went and looked at my son and they said they didn't have the staff. He's a 4-to-1 person because if he gets mad, he has to be taken down. We don't pay these staff people enough. We don't require them to be trained. None of the people in my son's group home right now are ABA certified. They don't have any training. They don't know how to follow a schedule. We keep buying shit and they can't use it. It doesn't. This is DDS's job. Thank you.
Thank you. And we hear you, and I will add that to that bill. I would love to work with you both, so maybe we can follow up.
It would be a pleasure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next on our list is, I think I apologize, it might be Mary, or it's Manny, I don't know, or Elena, and then Christine. Gotcha, yeah. And so it's Tammy, Mary and Elena, and Christine. Okay. And then we'll open it up right after that.
Hi, I'll keep this kind of short. I'm Tammy Sellinger, and I too have children with extreme severe autism and Fragile X syndrome. And just to piggyback on what Darlene and Sue were saying, DDS seems to go toward the low level of need. Not to say they don't need assistance and don't need support and so on, but if you look at the programs that they do, it's one after another. It's for those who can live on their own with minimal support. My son's a 2-to-1 when he's in the community and 1-to-1 besides that. My daughter also needs a lot of support. So my son is in a group home, And we're very fortunate with that, but that was because he was in school residentially out of state. So the state had to put him into a group home. And they are wonderful, but the staff aren't paid right. Can't get the training because of that. So it's all pretty much what Sue was saying, what Darlene was saying. So I'll end here, but I'd be happy to help out also. We definitely want to see this progress, and we appreciate everything you can do for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ready? All right, I'm going to go. My name's Elena Williams. This is Mary Ann Langton. I'm her personal assistant. She is pleased that the wheelchair repair law became enacted on July 1, 2024. Before this law, she had to wait up to a year for her wheelchair to be fixed. Now the dealer is required to fix the wheelchair within 10 business days after the authorization has been granted. Therefore, this law is very imperative for people with disabilities. She's asking that the Human Services Committee please adopt the proposed changes that they will share soon, and these changes will help strengthen the law. So thank you.
On Friday.
On Friday?
Yeah. The report is coming out.
The report will be
Report's
out
coming
on
Friday.
Friday. Okay, wonderful, with the new recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christine Feely, and a resident of West Hartford, and want to start by thanking all of you for the great work that you do in the legislature, because I know you work so hard. I spend some days in the lobby days there, and I see people going back and forth, and I know how hard you work, and I really appreciate all that you do, and especially appreciate hearing about all of the things that you do related to health and children. And I actually think what I have to talk about this evening is relevant to that, because what I really, really want to advocate for is the environment. And as you know as well or better than I do, the legislature has not done well the last couple of years on the environment. And I have this feeling sometimes that we'll have all these great things going on, and then the world will come crashing down on us, because we won't be saved from climate change. Connecticut has already lost coastline, and I apologize, but I've only lived in Connecticut about 8 years, so I kind of have this joke that Connecticut is already a small state, and I feel like they can't lose any more to beach erosion and that kind of thing. But of course, it's not funny at all, and all the flooding and all the issues of climate change. And the governor issued an order 3 years ago, and yet today in the state of the state, he didn't even mention it. And I know you all aren't responsible for that. You're not responsible for anything that the governor said or didn't say, but he called out a bunch of committees, and environment was not one of them. I mean, we're just not really seeing it. Now I've lost track of time. I forget if it was a year or 2 years ago that a bill was proposed having to do with helping its installation and its financing of solar canopies. It went nowhere. And yet, the People's Action on Clean Energy did a study, I think it was just recently up to date, and my friend Bernie back here can tell you more about that, on what solar canopies can do for Connecticut. And even West Hartford, which doesn't have a lot of what we might think of as open spaces to do solar canopies, can provide like 75% between rooftop solar and solar canopies of their needs, like parking lots, the one here, the ones that are high schools, all those different things. And yet it's a challenge to do, and some aid needs to be provided. But so all the clean energy stuff, again, the executive order, Lamont issued an executive order, and yet today in the state of the state, he told us, don't be worried about methane. And for a lot of us, that makes us want to scream and tear our hair out. So, and actually, one of the ways that really has an impact on health and children is that Air pollution causes lung cancer and aggravates many other respiratory diseases. So my understanding is that Connecticut has never met the clean air standards. For what, half a century, we've had Clean Air Act, and I think, I don't hear about the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act. We know that those will be under attack. So I know that you're not on the Environment Committee, but whatever you can do to help us, I don't see wetlands protection. There's so many things about environment, and Connecticut has such great natural resources. When I moved here about 8 years ago, I was struck by how beautiful Connecticut is and what wonderful state parks they have. I mean, I was just really taken aback. And even the reservoirs, which I live near one of the reservoirs, and go up there to walk. I mean, it's wonderful, but it really requires, it has to be tended, it has to be protected. So I'll stop. And I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here and for all your efforts.
Thank you, thank you. I will just comment on you sharing all of that, which is super helpful and accurate. I think all of us in the legislature would agree with you that we haven't done enough, particularly to address climate change in the last 2 years in the legislature. I would share, you've heard about some of the issues that we're going to tackle, and there's some here, but it's worth mentioning that in regards to the House priority bills that are anticipated, one is going to be on special education, one is going to be on housing, one is going to be on childcare, the one that I'm leading, and then there's a fourth one that is going to be on climate change and the environment. Again, it takes all of us to make sure that that bill actually has something that's strong and meaningful to address a lot of these issues. But I did want to acknowledge that I think for those of us in the House that worked really hard to try to get a House priority bill on environment passed last year, we are at it again, and we want to make sure that happens. And I would just add, particularly around some of your points for what else we can do, one of the reasons I really value serving on the Transportation Committee is, so much of our emissions really are transportation driven. And there's so much that we can do around the design of our communities to hopefully encourage, more opportunity that we're not using our cars for every trip that we have to take in our community, that we will walk, that we will bike, that we will take the bus. So I think that there's much more that we can do around the design of our communities, and that is on us also on the Transportation Committee. So thank you for all of that, and happy to welcome, your thoughts as we move forward on that House priority bill.
Hi, I'm Carrie Stockman, and I just wanted to follow up on that last speech I spent yesterday at the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters Summit, and was sobered by scientific reports and the projections. But I think the hard data is pretty clear, and it hit home when I talked to my college roommate today who lives in LA and has her go bag packed and ready to go and is watching the routes that she can use to get out. So we have to make this more of a priority. The fact that 5004 didn't pass last year, the fact that Governor Lamont has not stood up and engaged with offshore wind production. We need to look at alternative grid building. We need to look at a lot of these things that are really important. And one of the things, all of these bills will come up, and thank you for your support. I am really concerned about the public benefit charge and the concerns about the public benefit charge that everybody is so worried about, because it got to be a lot of money. It got to be a lot of money last year in the public benefit charge. That's the little line item on your utility bill where it's like 1/10 of a cent per dollar, because it goes to support reinvestment in renewable energy and in a lot of positive movement forward on this edge. So I don't know. I think what's the best way to really help us help you? I'm with Asylum Hill, and we have our climate action team, and we're working with a lot of other religious organizations, and there's a lot of communities. But how do we make this happen? Because time is running out.
I would say keep doing what you're doing. I had a conversation with the Senate Chair of the Environment Committee today, actually, and let him know that West Hartford wants a strong bill, and we're gonna fight for that. The Senate needs to get it done. So the public benefits charge, I just wanted to mention, I know Bernie sent us an email about it. This is for people who are not familiar with it or were not familiar with it until this summer, which is what most people, I believe, myself included, didn't know a lot about. And all of a sudden, bills, electric bills all across the state exploded. And that was driven, well, one, it was the hottest July on record, right? And I think the governor alluded to that. But the other piece was this public benefits, right? And it's really poorly named because people, they look at it and they think that, it's all going towards, I got a lot of emails about why my bill, and I'm paying another $100 to help other people pay their bills. And that's not the majority of the public benefits. The majority of it, the vast majority, was a bailout for Millstone that was passed in 2017. I think I'm the only one here who was a member of the General Assembly at the time. I voted against the bill. I was in the House at the time and vice chair of the Energy Committee. It was led by Republicans. They had a split in the Senate, and a lot of Dems, especially southeastern Dems who, who live around the Millstone area, right, supported it. And it was a bailout. They threatened to leave. Which, it was an empty promise because it's not like you can just flip the switch off at a nuclear power plant and, it takes many, many years. And anyway, and a lot of people argued at the time that, look, if Millstone needs assistance, it should be all of New England paying for that because the benefit, it supplies energy for all of New England, not just Connecticut ratepayers. It passed anyway, and this is I think it's going to expire in 3 months or so, a couple months. So that'll help, I think, the public benefits charge because that piece is going away. But I do think it's important for us to continue to invest in those, the energy conservation, the other things that the benefits charge does. But I just wanted to kind of explain what that piece of it, which a lot of us had a big problem with it at the time, at 2017. I don't know, anything you guys want to?
I would just add, even though none of us are on the Environment Committee, there's an Environment Caucus at the Connecticut General Assembly, which we take part in, and so we'll be pushing for the legislation. Thank you.
Hi, I'm glad to be here. My name is Simone Vrabel-Lacoutre. I was an English teacher in West Hartford for about 34 years. I'm getting old now, I'm retired. And I'm getting really tired of waiting for something to happen to enable people to die with dignity in this state. I first spoke up about it 10 or 11 years ago. I was a lot younger then. I've seen a lot of people die since then, people close to me, and a lot of suffering, unnecessary suffering. And it seems to me that studies showed that about 70% of the people in Connecticut want medical assistance in dying with dignity, and yet it's not happening. And I have my own beliefs about why that's not happening, and I'm not really sure I should say it out loud here, so I won't. But anyway, I will read you a poem that a friend of mine just gave me. It's called The Plan. Ella's dad was 95. He fell down almost every day. He remembered how he used to be, and he couldn't bear what he saw in the mirror. He couldn't shave. He'd had enough. But first, he wanted one last time to claim his life's dignity, to have that head of lush gray hair expertly cut and groomed for the occasion, and the clean shave his friend the barber gave with a straight razor. Then he gathered his descendants in a circle to tell them the plan. The youngest one began to cry. It was too much for her. So he took her on his fragile lap, kissed her tiny forehead, and told a lie that she could understand. He wouldn't say when or where, but it would be soon, before Christmas maybe. When he spoke up, he stood up straight, tall, and relaxed in their hush, like in the old days, taking control of things, making things possible for them. He wanted to be at his best when he showed up in their dreams. Well, I think it's time for our legislature to do something that the other people in New England seem to have. They have it in Maine, they have it in Vermont. I don't understand why we don't have it in Connecticut, but it seems to me that people should be allowed to die with dignity and get the aid that they need from doctors. So I expect all of you to do whatever you can to make that happen. I'm tired of talking up about it and going to lobby day. I've done that. I did that the first time I did it was about 10 or 11 years ago, and I'm still waiting. So, let's make it happen. By the way, I don't live in West Hartford anymore. I live in Bloomfield, and I thought my representative would be here tonight, but I see he's not here. Bobby Gibson?
He got a flat tire. Our hope is he'll be here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, he must
yeah.
be the lousy roads. That's another issue, by the way. Laugh about it if you will, but I will say this. The town of Bloomfield was notified 3 months in advance of Jim Nally's death, my partner of 31 years, a few years ago. They knew about it ahead of time. They did nothing about it. There were holes in the road on Doncaster, and one of them caused his death. And in fact caused injury to another person named Pensiero and to other people that I don't know. But they did nothing about it, and they finally corrected it about 15 months after he died. But a woman named Suzanne Petke actually met with town representatives to speak to this issue in May of 2022. So they could have corrected it. Jim died in August of 2022. And that's a whole nother issue, but I don't know what else to do about it other than complain. I've certainly spoken about it with Bobby Gibson. I've been told that they're investigating it. I also know that if all of you should know this, that if you ever have, I heard a lawyer tell me this, that if you've had an accident on the road caused by, if you've had an accident on a state or local road, whether in a car or on a bicycle or whatever, you have only 90 days to actually file a lawsuit. So anyway, I didn't even find out about it until 2 years after the fact that the town had been notified. But I think it's disgraceful that the town manager and the head of engineering or whoever it was met with this woman and they just ignored it for another 15 months. So that's another issue. But I'm sorry to hear he had a flat tire.
Thank you. I'm so sorry to hear about that instance. I would just say we will share that with Representative Gibson if he doesn't get here. And in regards to the aid in dying bill, I know for me personally, it's been something I've been supportive of and co-sponsored, and I do believe it's going to come up again this year in the Public Health Committee.
It comes up every year.
I know.
Is that because of the Catholic Church?
Well, it's because of
Influence on the
there's
legislature or what?
the bill often gets through the Public Health Committee, goes to the Judiciary Committee, and it does not get out of the Judiciary Committee. And so there are a number of members on the Judiciary Committee that are not supportive. And so from a strategic sense, I think, that's something that definitely has to be worked through because
What do you do, kick them off the committee, get somebody else on the committee? There must be something you can do, because it's ridiculous that if 70% of the people want something, and you have 1 or 2 people who, because of their religious beliefs or whatever, are against it, that's just not right.
Yeah.
So tell me what to
Yeah.
do about it. I'd
Yeah.
love to do something about it.
Yeah, the advocacy helps,
Yeah.
but
Are you-
Jillian's on the Judiciary Committee. So
Maybe
she
you
can
already
speak
are
to that.
because you've done the advocacy. Are you connected with Compassion and Choices? Okay. So they'll be working with those of us who are supportive to do strategy to try and get this through, because agreed, it's ridiculous that it's only a couple, I wouldn't even say handful, a couple of people who can derail this time and time again.
Why should we have to go to Vermont?
Representative Staffstrom and Senator Winfield. He's very supportive.
Yes.
I'll leave the other part maybe unsaid.
Hi, my name is Francine Steer. I live in West Hartford. Tammy Exum is my wonderful representative, and Jillian, love you. I spoke with Derek Slapp, and Tammy Exum knows this project, so I'm working on something about mental health, adult mental health, and it's because it's personal for me. I have a child with a mental illness, a very, very serious mental illness. And he is no longer living in Connecticut because he found Massachusetts to be much more welcome for healing in Massachusetts. And I'm working on something that Massachusetts has 36 of these, what they call clubhouses for mental health. And they're places that you can walk in and be there for the day. And it's not anything with a television or a pool table or anything like that. It's a place where you come and you center yourself and you look at the whiteboard that has all the listings of all the jobs that need to be done within the clubhouse, and you choose something that you feel comfortable and able to do that day, and whether it's making lunches or whether it's sweeping the floor, whatever it is that's going to help you get through the day with your friends that you meet from the clubhouse, it's something that brings you toward health. And it's not anything that involves gaming or anything like that. So I will say that it has helped my son find a job, because that's a very important part of what this clubhouse does. And working, having employment, or finishing school, or any of those things that these clubhouses help to do is miraculous for somebody with mental health challenges, because you can do something. You can feel like you've accomplished something. And so I'm working to get one in the Hartford County area. And now there are lots of places that involve mental health after hospitalization in and around Hartford County. And not everything, not one thing fits all. So this is not for everybody, but it's for a lot of people that have gotten a lot of help. And it's part of an organization called Clubhouse International. There are 350 of these clubhouses around the world. And so Fountain House in Manhattan is the one that we visited, my family and I visited when we first learned about it. And it's just phenomenal. And they do have a lot of support, a lot of funding, a lot of donations, and a lot of famous people that have given a lot of money. So they have a 5-story building with lots of elevators. They have a printing press. They have a yoga studio. They have a ballet studio. They have their own medical place outside of the clubhouse. If the person with the mental illness gets the flu, he can go to that facility that's connected with Fountain House. And the people that run that medical facility understand all of the mental health medications that they're on, and will not give them other medications that will interfere with the mental health medications. So I'm working on it, and I'm really hoping that it can come to pass. Thank you.
I just would like to thank you, Francine, for coming out tonight. We've certainly talked about this, and I appreciate it and your continued advocacy, and we will continue our conversations. I know that Jillian and I intend to do so with you. Thank you so much.
Good evening. I'm Howard Garval in West Hartford. I'm here for AARP Connecticut, and I'll give you a copy, Representative Farrar, of our legislative agenda. But one question we have is that in December every year, we get together and the legislative agenda is presented to all the volunteers, and I'm a volunteer for AARP Connecticut. And Representative Garibay came to speak, and she did some phenomenal work last session on bills for aging and aging in place and so on, which we were really happy about. But one thing she said is that there are, I don't know if rumors or just talk about legislators who may want to try to push privatization of Medicaid this session. So I wanted to ask if that's something you've heard about. I'm hoping you're not supportive of that, but it was something that the representative was concerned about enough to bring it up to our group. So I just wanted to raise that question for you.
One person shared that concern with me. Again, Chair of Human Services, so deal quite a bit with Medicaid. Also, the governor had commissioned a study to look into the potential of going back to managed care. But that study did report that Connecticut, we have what's called fee-for-service. We have some of, if not the lowest administrative costs in the state. And so what the report actually illustrated is that when you go to a privatization model, costs can increase because the private wants to make some money.
You're paying the administrative costs of the
Yeah. So
managed care companies.
there might be some folks, I'm sure there are, who are having that conversation, but the chairs of the Human Services Committee, and I would think many on appropriations, are not interested in that. So if it should get pushed, there will be quite a battle against it.
Good, thank you.
All right, Bernie. Howard, I like the sweater. I turned 50 about 14 months ago, and AARP's been hitting me up with I got the coffee mug, and they want that. I just can't do it yet, but I'll be there soon. I'll join you. The red vest, I'll be wearing it soon, yeah. Bernie, floor is yours.
Good evening. I'm Bernie Pelletier. I live in West Hartford. I just want to tell you, 50 is for sissies. Wait till you hit 70. I did send an email. Let me say thank you all. I feel well represented. I think you do a great job for West Hartford and all the surrounding towns, so much appreciated. As is often the case, I let Christine do the heavy lifting, and then I come in. But I do, on a serious note, I did go to the League of Conservation Voters Summit, and the new chair or co-chair of the Environment Commission said, "What do you want?" He's basically asking, "What do you want?" And the most striking comment we got was, "I don't want anything." This is Charles Rothenberger of Save the Sound. He said, "I just don't want to lose what we have." And I don't know whether my email was sufficient to convey just the anger and venom that is circulating on Facebook and other groups. In fact, they're moving from Facebook to whatever Discord is. They're moving there, which the name alone is a little bit scary. So I say there's a legitimate concern. All of us want lower prices. We want to take care of our neighbors. But the way this dialogue is being set up is going to make keeping the status quo, which I don't think is enough, hard. And to take issues like Christine put on the table, like solar canopies, we did do a study, and West Hartford and most towns in Connecticut could supply about 40% of their electricity right from their parking lots. And I'm happy to I'll send you all that study because it is inspirational. But it is, my main concern is that you be prepared, that you know you've got people who will help you. I think oftentimes in one of the committees, whether it be the Judiciary Committee, these things get killed or brought up. You know where we live. Let us know. We're here to help. So thank you very much.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
Is that a solar canopy at West Farms? Is that
Yes.
what that's considered? Okay.
So West Farms Mall, it's actually, I think in New Britain perhaps, or Newington, right across the street here at the Bank of America parking lot. All it is a solar canopy over a parking lot. And because that space is already degraded, i.e. it's a parking lot, you put solar on it, you can get a lot of energy. You can also get covered parking. So you see a lot of police stations and people who want to be able to get in their cars and go. So there's a whole bunch of co-benefits. And that's the study, I'll send it to you, makes all those things clear. Thank you very much. Yep.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dawn Ennis. This month marks 21 years since I moved to West Hartford. And I turned 60 last year, so I see you. I teach at the University of Hartford, and I'm very close to becoming an ex-TV news person, like our friend Derek. I think the issues we heard tonight are very important. Our planet, autism, our roads. But there are people who work with you who want to see me exterminated. In the legislature, in Congress, the movement against people like me, transgender Americans, is growing. I came to Derek and Jillian with the case of a family that moved here from Texas. I encouraged them to flee Texas, a state of hate, and come here to Connecticut where it'll be better. It wasn't better. They have left, and they have organized other families who thought Connecticut would be a safe haven to move somewhere else where they feel their rights will be protected. And I know our Constitution is great. And I can defend myself as an adult against haters. But what of the children? That might be one calling right now. I have a transgender child. I never expected to have a transgender child, but she is who she is. What are we going to do about these families? And I think it's wonderful that the state has funding to help people fleeing reproductive rights endangerments, but we need to do something for these poor marginalized folks. And as a white person, I have it so much better. Our Black brothers and sisters and non-binary individuals are being targeted. And not one member of the federal delegation, except for John Larson, voted against the first anti-LGBT bill that is now part of our law that President Biden signed. I don't know where we're going as a country. And I'm going to be honest. I don't know where the Democratic Party's going. And I don't know if I'm going to be in this country myself much longer. I have Irish grandparents and I can move to Ireland, but fleeing is not the answer. Fighting is. And all I can ask you in these few moments I have is to please fight for the children. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Hear you and agree with you. We did have a meeting this week with the Out Accountability Project, and I know there's some initiatives. We also, some of us met with the Library Association, and so there's an initiative to protect school librarians. Connecticut did already protect public librarians. And then additionally, conversations about comprehensive sexual health education, which is a challenge. I'm not saying that would be easy, but I think low-hanging fruit is those of us being able to have the conversation. And I love the way you're framing it, because too often, and you're right, I can't even just say Republicans, too often those who are coming for those in the trans community make it seem as though we're harming children. But their rhetoric and what they want to do to trans youth is what's harming them. So we can defend it, and we will.
Dawn, thank you. And I just wanted to add to what Representative Gilchrist shared, that I'm not sure, for some of my colleagues sitting here, but I know for many of us, one of the most immediate calls that we received after the election were parents and children scared for their lives. And I think the first thing that we need to do is say, we hear you and you're not alone, and no trans child is alone in this state, because we will do everything in our power to not just protect them, to make sure they can live a full and vibrant life. And to your point around the challenges in front of us, I think that we don't know in many ways what we're going to face in the coming months. But I will say, in the legislature, we have a LGBTQIA caucus that is larger than it ever has been. And many of us are allies and accomplices of that caucus. And I know that caucus is putting together an agenda this year to really make sure that we stay united and strong in, obviously, as you said, what we might be doing, but what we could be doing better. And we will be absolutely working in partnership with our Attorney General and the Governor's office as we face these threats ahead. So I just want to thank you and appreciate you and your family and standing up for so many that need us right now.
And I want to applaud you all for being supportive. And the Attorney General's office has met with me, so I know that they're interested. And West Hartford Pride, of which I'm a member of the board, we're ready to work with anyone. I think that the confusion is that people think that children are either being mutilated or being groomed, when in fact we're just trying to have parents let kids be who they are. That's all. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Lars Helgeson. I'm a physician, and it's not only politicians that are going to be filibustering, but I will get to the point. There's going to be two topics I want to mention, or two ideas that I want to mention, and I will, like I said, get to the point. One was the United Healthcare executive that was killed a little while back in New York. It was executed, frankly, and his company had gotten very rich under his leadership for, frankly, refusing payments. They had come up with a system to automatically reject claims, not based on the validity of the claims, but to automatically reject them. Also having to do with pre-authorization, people weren't getting treatment, not just his company, but others. That's just one example. The other one is a little bit more of a drop in the ocean of healthcare, which is, I'm sure some of you might have heard about, was the anesthesia time limiting thing that Anthem had come up with, where they had said for all cases that under surgery, that an anesthetic was taking place, if it's not done within a certain period of time, which was very short, they reject the whole claim. And then you have to reapply and so forth. And that was clearly a ploy to decrease payment. But that's just one small point. I think that was one of the opening shots towards making it a much broader based. I think that was sort of, we're going to try this, see what we can get away with, and then expand this, not just for anesthesia services, but for any healthcare services. The goal being to minimize payments, care, access, and so forth for patients who need care. So with those 2 points, what is the legislature going to be able to do to help on this? I know Senator Gordon has been very active on this, in particular about the anesthesia thing. He's going to be introducing a bill, or has introduced it, about that particular point. But this is a much bigger topic than just this one isolated drop in the ocean. It has to do with the process that insurance companies are trying to accomplish. What would the legislature be able to do to counter this and to fight this?
Great question. So we are doing a variety of things. So I'm actually on a, not tri-chair, quad chair, working group with Senator Gordon and Senator Lesser and Representative Mara. It is a bipartisan group looking at pharmacy, because that's another piece of the pie. And then there's a group of us who have been meeting to have conversations about what we can do for healthcare. Similar to aid in dying, politics comes into play. So there are many of us who want to address a variety of these pieces. The co-chair of the insurance committee will be introducing a prior authorization piece. And so these conversations, so I guess I'd say to you, the conversations will be happening. We recognize it's a huge issue. We do live in, Connecticut's called what the insurance capital of the world. So they do have a very large lobby. And so it really comes down to us. It's like, it's pushing back on that. Their policies are convoluted purposely.
Oh, yeah, of course they are.
It is,
Absolutely.
it's so, and then as soon as we pass something, they change the game. So there are those, so yes, we will continue to work on it.
Yeah, I would just add, I think what you'll see is you'll end up hopefully seeing that there is a Senate bill and a House bill that's trying to address this prior authorization issue, but also how we can create more affordable health insurance options. So we welcome your ideas, but there's several groups of us trying to work on that. We have a few bills that can bring more of this to light. And this is kind of a big point, all these issues, but with those bills, right, we want you to come and testify and talk about, your expertise as we craft these bills.
Thank you. That's very heartening.
And
May
I
I make
just-
one
Oh, sure,
last
of
statement?
course, go ahead.
One is with the two items that happened. I think the anesthesia thing, I think really blew up, but I think it was really emblematic of the undercurrent or the backstory or anger, frankly, in the public of all of these things happening. I mean, I'm sure, I won't ask for a raise of hands of people who've had problems with payers, with pre-approval, refusing to make payments. I'm sure there was quite a few of you would have that problem. So I think there's a lot of underlying anger. And for some reason, this anesthesia thing, which was a very small point relatively, it seemed to like be a spark. And all of a sudden, it just went berserk in the country. Federal, multiple states, it just went crazy. And I think that kind of surprised the payers. Also, the fact that poor man who was killed, I mean, that's horrible. But I think that was like a 1-2 punch in the E-suite, the executive suites in these companies that, there's something going on. So I think it kind of got their attention, especially that man who got shot. Because he was one of them, and that very few numbered elite executive suite, it was one of them. So I think they sort of felt they personally are going to be at risk. Because it could have been me, would be in their minds. Oh, sorry. What? I stole words from a politician? Oh, my word. Sorry. Thank you.
Before we just get to our next speaker, but coming up, I wanted to give Representative Bobby Gibson a chance to introduce, say hello. What dedication this
Yeah, flat tire.
public servant has displayed. A flat tire on the way here. He changed it himself, right? Did you do that? Okay. And now he's here. So, Bobby, here, we'll have, and we've been doing, committees and maybe one legislative priority that you have, and then we'll get back to the fine folks here. Okay?
Good evening, everyone. Again, apologize for being tardy. I am Bobby Gibson, State Representative, one of the Deputy Speakers of the House. I serve on the General Law Committee, I serve on the Education Committee, and as well as the Appropriations Committee. It's a pleasure to be here tonight to hear some of your priorities, the things that we should fight for this upcoming session, long session. We're hearing that it's going to be a stressful session because of different things, including the budget. But I'm looking forward to bettering housing, healthcare, what you guys were just talking about. There's some legislation I passed in the past for aging in place for seniors. I'm looking to make sure that that remains and that is increased, as well as some educational funding opportunities for traditional public schools and charter public schools. So again, it's nice to be here, and please let us know what your concerns are. Thank you.
Hi, how are you guys? I want to thank you for all you do at the state legislature. I've been up there several times, and I know what goes on there, and I appreciate your work at the state capitol. I want to start with that. I want to say, too, January 20th is going to be a kind of historic day in America. We have Martin Luther King Day, the same day we have Trump coming in as president, threatening to cut many programs that people here care about and attacking working people and poor people. I can't believe it's happening, but it's happening. I've been doing this a very long time. I've been political since the 70s. When I was in the Army from 62 to 65, and I visited a 19-year-old. I visited a concentration camp called Dachau. I wasn't political. I just saw a sign, and I drove in there. I drove away about a mile, and then I got out of my car and I vomited. It was an indescribable situation. When I see the United States of America talking about setting up camps for migrants and taking 11 million people out of this country and moving them somewhere, God knows where. There's a trust act that's going to be asked of you guys to be empowered or be it more effective. And what all that would do would protect people from being hauled out of churches, schools, wherever, workplaces, and dealt with in a responsible way. The other thing I would like to do mention is that I'm on the committee for Connecticut for All, the coordinating committee. Connecticut for All does not call the guardrails. We call them roadblocks. And what has happened there's several billions of dollars. I think it's up to $8 billion of surplus sitting at the state capitol right now. And you just heard people here talk about people don't have a place for their child to go to. And we're sitting on $8 billion. And these roadblocks could be moved. And they could be moved for education, for healthcare, for housing. We have homeless in Connecticut. I moved from Hartford here because one of my children needed services for the schools. Thank you for that. But we left Hartford. There is a wall there between Hartford and West Hartford and the suburbans that has to be broken down. My children 30 years ago were plaintiffs in the lawsuit, Sheff versus O'Neill. We still are meeting every Saturday on the third Saturday, 30 years later. So that is going to come up again about integrating housing and integrating schools. There has to be a way to do that in a way that makes sense. I know that's going to be a difficult time because what's going to happen on the national level, if you read Project 2025, if you haven't read it, you can get a summary of it. Just go into YouTube and you'll see what's going to happen, or what they're going to implement that plan. But I appreciate everything you do. I'd like you to pay attention to the roadblocks and try to loosen up as much of that is coming, because a lot of these folks here need money. And we don't need any more taxes if we tax the wealth that's here in Connecticut. We have 12 billionaires sitting in Connecticut that aren't paying their fair share. Everybody in this room, unless you're a billionaire, is paying more taxes percentage-wise than they are. That's not right. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Courtney Borns, and one of the reasons I'm so pleased to live in West Hartford is our town council, our mayor, and you guys. So it's just wonderful to be here. And I'll just pick up briefly where Tom was. Connecticut for All, I've been on a group called Fair Share that's been a member of Connecticut for All, and we've been concerned wanting to urge the legislature and the governor to sign in a marginal increase in income tax rates for the wealthiest Connecticut residents. We have over 10,000 families who earn multiple millions of dollars every year, and as well as those billionaires. And they could pay a fractional share more, and we could raise hundreds of millions of dollars, and it wouldn't affect their lifestyle one whit. But we have a governor, I'm sorry to say, who's adamantly against this, and he's made it clear he would not approve a bill that increases fractional share. But we can do that. It's the fair thing to do. We're one of the wealthiest states and the wealthiest country in the world. We also, as I think we pointed out earlier, one of the highest income disparities between our wealthy and our poor. If I remember the number right, we have 330,000 Connecticut residents who live at or below the federal poverty level. And that's just inexcusable for a wealthy state like Connecticut. We can do something about it. And I know, Jillian, I think you addressed affordable housing or homelessness in the recent Hartford Current article. And I think homelessness is important along with affordable housing. We have 3,000 families, people who have estimated to be out on the streets. I happen to have started about 2 years ago to help one of them, a young woman who was on the West Hartford corner. You may see her often. And she gets stereotyped along with so many others. It turns out she's been diagnosed with severe PTSD as a result of a very violent childhood. Her father and her mother just treated her very violently, and she is frightened out of her own shadow. And I've learned from her we should never stereotype people. Each homeless person out there in Connecticut has their own story, and it just seems to me if we're going to be a caring state, we can take some of those funds that we're talking about adjusting and try to address issues of homelessness too, because that's so serious. I think, just to be brief, I too feel that the fiscal guardrails can be adjusted. I know the Connecticut Voices for Children that you probably all follow has done some great research on that. I just got my email today from them and addressing this. They have a 5-year plan to try to put more money in the pockets of hardworking families, grow a strong and diverse workforce, ensure affordable housing and childcare is accessible in every town across the state, promote safe, healthy, and just communities for all. I mean, so there are ways that I think you know as well as I that Connecticut Voices, for example, has shown that we can adjust those guardrails and put some of that money where it's really needed. So I'm hoping that that can happen as well. Finally, it just happened to, I wasn't follow up on the comments about our climate. I also am a member, along with Carrie, of the Asylum Hill Congregational Church, and I volunteered to try to help us get solar panels on our church. And I retained a consultant who's been working with me, and I'm just so chagrined when I learned from him that churches, which are considered part of under the nonprofit status to get solar panels, have to submit applications to PURA, who has issued regulations. And those regulations say now that you can only submit applications if you're a church twice a year in February and August. They're going to put a lottery. They have a lottery, and if you're not one of the few applications that comes out of the lottery first, you go back in line for the next lottery. It's just awful, and my impression from talking with this consultant is that Eversource has had an undue voice in affecting that regulation when it came out. And I said, well, certainly if you don't get pulled out the first time, then you go near the head of the line the second lottery. And no, you don't. You just go back in the lottery. It's just so darn frustrating. So I hope that can be looked into. Thank you. And
We're all taking that note of our life.
Incidentally, I asked Tammy to hand out those PRAC. The Poverty and Race Research Action Council is a wonderful research organization dealing with education, poverty, and more in Washington, D.C. It was started about 20 years ago by a West Hartford resident, Phil Tagler. And that piece that I just hand out to all of you is an example of the excellent research they do. And it can come in handy, I think, if you want to enroll and get the free copies in the mail. Thank you very much.
Hi, hello. My name is Viviane Rinaldi. I'm resident in West Hartford, and I think many people talk about other topics that was in my agenda to talk about. But I work with families, strong advocate for families and children, and I'm really concerned about people trying to move here or stay in this town, and landlords are requesting 3 deposit. I know even though it's not under the law, right? If I'm not wrong, Connecticut, they can request 2. But the rents are crazy already, and they are requesting high deposits for people who work people. Like they cannot have 3 deposits and the next month. So I'm not sure what is. I know housing is the topic right now. Connecticut is trying to talk about we in our town having more development. Not necessarily it's affordable, but more development. We need that too. But at the same time, how we make sure we are taking a look and make sure the process and the law it's being done. I hear often and through work and through with families is you can report that, but you put in the pressure on the vulnerable person, right? I was renting one time, and I didn't have a good experience in reporting. So often I hear families saying, I will have a problem with that. And, I need to be transparent with them. What is the procedures? What the town's going to do? What the person could expect? But in reality, they ended up not doing, because it's not really fair with them. And I can hear that. Also, another topic connect with that, it's becoming with administration that we are not sure what gonna come up in terms of immigration, deportation. New Haven is strong on that, Hartford is strong on that. My question for you all, I know you all are participating in conversations, and through my search, looks like everybody support, people here, but I I want to make sure how we can connect people. Like I feel right now we have so much information going on. It's so polarized. People are not receiving the right information. And through the town, we can do that. But I feel our town is not connected at all. First, so I think our my big question is how those topics that other people connect here, we can make sure our towns start to talking about each other. How the districts are working together to make sure the people there are having those conversations. What is the space we are creating for those conversations happen in a way that we can grow together? Because a lot of the conversation we had here, or the topics like Dawn bring the topic, it's about hate, it's about fear. West Hartford had a great program about hate crime, so how you report. But in the end, is also our ability to talk to each other and understand the other so we can work together. Maybe we're not going to be super unifying those topics, but the respect need happen. And as a person, I should have the same rights as anybody else. So I feel like we have a little work we need to do in our town, but at the state, it's just a reflection of the towns. We are not talking to each other. That's really concern. As an immigrant myself, a resident here, but through the state, I seen that, and I'm not sure what's going to happen, but we need to push those conversations. If it is uncomfortable, I'm sorry, we need to do that. So thank you so much.
I just want to say about housing, I do think we're going to see some real progress on housing, both in hopefully supply, making it easier to build more, but also on some protections for tenants. And so that came up at the GIA. Some of you are participants in GIA. I know Courtney was there and others. I see shaking your head, and I think many of us were there and took that pledge to really make progress on housing. So.
And I just wanted to add, particularly around a lot of the immigrant and refugee issues, we have any number of organizations in our state that are, really united. I've spoken with many of them so that we can really, in many ways, have a crisis response team of sorts, united between organizations, communities, and ourselves at the legislature and the Attorney General. One of the things I would just say generally, because it's something that we actually worked on back in 2016, that's worth bringing up again, just as a resource for anyone here that knows someone that could use it. There is a resource that is called the Safety Preparedness Plan. If you know of any family that is concerned about, being deported, it is a very important plan for them to put together for themselves and their family that sets about all the legal, setup for their children if in case that does happen. So things like that, I think are really important to note as a resource because we want to make sure that those in our communities, are really prepared and that we are mindful of what folks might need so that we can respond accordingly. So thank you for bringing up those issues.
My name's Alita Jones. I'm a resident of West Hartford. I'm also a member of the Greater Hartford Interfaith Action Alliance, GIA. And I actually got up here, first of all, because nobody had mentioned the fiscal guardrails. And I want to be sure that you really are looking closely at those and changing them. Because as we can see, there are so many needs out there we need to not be tying up all the money for pensions and the state's rainy day fund. The second thing I wanted to mention just briefly is that back 2 years ago, the legislature realized that they needed to start funding the Education Cost Sharing Fund. And it was funded partially. It's something that was set up way back, I believe, in the late 70s to equalize income coming into the towns. And I want you to be sure to look at that Education Cost Sharing Fund and be sure that it gets fully funded, because it has not been fully funded. And I think that's something that's important to do. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Mario Volpe. First, I wanted to just thank you for hosting this. I wanted to comment quickly on the new student loan reimbursement program. I wanted to shine light on experience that my friend had. And I know that the current one, that it just went into effect in the new year. There's not much that can be done on the established program, but I wanted to talk about potential on new programs in the future. So, as someone that works at the Capitol as a staffer, my friends often come to me when they have problems with the state. But my friend recently reached out to me with disappointment that he wasn't going to be able to reach his 50 volunteer hours because he's going to begin chemo next week. So, excuse me. I was hoping, I know this one's set in stone, but for future programs, I was just wanted to comment if I hope there's a possibility to put in exemptions for people with either disabilities or they're going through medical emergencies like that. Just so, for the younger generation, oftentimes, or not even just the younger generation, there are so many people in this country and state that are going through or that are burned down by medical debt, or not medical debt, but student loan debt. And in my friend's case, he's going to undergo so much in medical debt and deal with his battle with cancer. A program that was established to hopefully alleviate his college loans, he can't take advantage of because of this new fight, because he can't get his volunteer hours, which I know it's for a noble purpose, and many people would take advantage of. I'm happy of that because it is a step in the right direction. However, I just hope for in the future that we could potentially also create a pathway for those who don't have that ability. That's all I wanted to say, and thank you so much for all you do for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for saying that, and I know it's a new program, and that's really good feedback because it may not have been considered at the time, so thank you for that.
I would just add, it's really commendable for you to, come out here and advocate for your friend. You raise a great point. And what I'm about to say is not going to help your friend, but it's going to help hopefully many other people. And actually, I started the evening by saying that we need to do much more on scholarships on the front end. So that would alleviate the need to go into debt. So we can take action at the beginning. We don't have to wait until people are tens of thousands of dollars in debt. But you raise a great point. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Muscardi. First, Derek, Kate, I emailed you about a school thing. You guys were super responsive. Your offices are great. Thank you for that. I actually had a question and or suggestion, and it was triggered by the gentleman who was talking about United Healthcare. There's a big pile of issues in this legislative session, everything from climate change to healthcare to everything. But Connecticut is a shareholder. You have $50 billion in assets and pension funds. You're a major shareholder at every company. It's benchmarked assets. MSCI ACWI probably is your benchmark. You own a little of every company in the world. And the lever you have as a shareholder is a proxy vote. And when you look at the proxy voting record of Connecticut through the Treasurer's office, it does not often match the legislative dictate of the legislature, right? So what you can do about United Healthcare is you can vote, right? You can vote out an executive who's overcharging. You can vote out, the vote for Boeing last year, for instance, Connecticut voted for almost everybody on the Boeing board. after years of Boeing, crashing planes and all the problems that they have. So I guess the question and/or suggestion is it possible or is it worth looking at closing the gap between what the legislature wants and how Connecticut acts as a shareholder? I'll end it my question there.
Thank you. Great point. Where I would say this has come up the most, but I'm going to make a note about it because there needs to be follow-up. We have had conversations, I would say, as a member of the Finance Committee with the Treasurer's Office, particular to their role in those meetings related to climate, mostly. Like, that's really been the focus more than other things. But I appreciate you bringing up all of these other aspects. But climate has been the main area of focus that we've tried to pressure the Treasurer's Office a bit more around.
I study this for a living. I do data on board members.
He'd be great.
We need more. You need your info.
I actually offered it to the state. I said, I'll give it to you. I'll give you data for free. But it struck me just being here. This is the first time I've ever come to a session like this. It struck me being here that there's a gap between what you want to accomplish through legislative action and what you can actually do with an annual vote and annual presence in boardrooms.
Please email me. We'll follow up. Okay.
Get our info.
Okay.
Yeah, send us the, yeah, we want to learn more.
Hi, I'm Mike Bracken, and I live in West Hartford. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate all of you and the work that you do for us up at the Capitol. A lot of things that were said tonight triggered me. I'm a veteran with PTSD, and after many decades of fighting to get recognized, the VA has finally recognized that and upped my disability rating a week ago, basically, a week ago. So I'm really grateful for that. That's just going to change my life in a positive way. Of course, I'm very concerned about the incoming regime and what they have planned, particularly in the way of veterans health care and many other things. But you mentioned the thing about the CEO, United Healthcare getting murdered, and I did a lot of thinking about that. I meditate every day, and mindfulness is a very big part of my life, and and I come to realize that it isn't about a binary thing, us versus them, or R versus D, or that binary paradigm that everybody wants to run to. I think it's about exploiters versus the exploited, and enabling exploitation. I think that's the real problem. We have a lot of, by its very design, a lot of systems in this country and in this world that enable exploiters and enable exploitive policies. And that's going to come in on steroids in a couple of weeks, okay, the policies that enable the exploiters. Anyway, one of the things I read through this here, and I noticed something that you're dealing with on renters. A year ago, my landlord sent me a notice that I needed to leave after my lease expired, that I needed to move. And my answer was no. Just no. So I went to the housing people at the VA, and they referred me to Veterans Legal Service, and they basically told me that because I'm over 62, I have a service-connected disability, and there's more than 5 units in the complex. They can't time me out. You know, but what about all the veterans who are younger than me? What about the people that are younger than me that are getting unfairly timed out? You guys are doing something about that. I really appreciate that, because that's radically unfair. A landlord should have a right to get rid of somebody if there's just cause, but go through the summary process. You know, that's what it's there for. You know, and hopefully, you know, tenants will know what the process is so that they can protect themselves. But you know, the thing I really wanted to talk about when I came up here was about electric rates. You know, everybody's screaming about electric rates. You know, when I first moved into my apartment, I negotiated with a landlord to include the electricity in the lease. Okay, and now there's been 3 owners, and they've had the electricity included. Well, they just summarily said, well, going forward, you know, you're gonna have to pay your electricity. That's not right. That's not right that they should be able to just arbitrarily decide that they're going to change the terms of the lease. And I don't know if there's anything you can do about it. You know, I went to West Hartford Housing Authority, and they basically said, well, you know, if they want to do that, they can. All they have to do is put in writing, and they can do it. And that's just not fair. You know, so I got a feeling I'm going to be getting electric bills pretty soon, and that's really going to hurt. But the main point I really wanted to make tonight is about Eversource. You know, we used to have CL&P used to be a real public utility. It was owned by the public. But then, long before any of you were there, I'm not blaming any of you, because what happened long before you came. But I think it was one of the stupidest things that the General Assembly ever did was deregulation. They said, oh, it'll be wonderful, you know, there'll be, you know, all kinds of competition, and the rates will be really low because of the competition. Well, that didn't happen. You know, fly-by-nights came and they came and left. And now we have a privately owned, for-profit corporation masquerading as a public utility. And that is the fundamental problem. That's the problem. You know, we don't have a public utility. And until we find a way to re-regulate them into a public utility by making it unprofitable for them, by regulating them, and all you hear is, wah, 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 PURA is really mean to us, and that's why, you know, we're not going to invest in the infrastructure. Well, we should be slamming them for that. You know, we need a real public utility in this state. You know, in this country, we need real public utilities. And all the rest of it is just lipstick on a pig. And can I just say one last thing? I know you. Any discussion about these electric rates, to really be intellectually honest, needs to include re-regulating and having and dealing with the fundamental problem that we have billions of dollars in ratepayer money going out to shareholders, and that is despicable. And you guys are in the room. I'm not in the room, okay? Is this being brought up? Is this being looked at? Is there a plan on how to re-regulate the system? And I know it's not going to be easy, okay? But we do have a lot of leverage. And like you said, you know, shareholders, you know, they vote. Maybe I don't have all the answers, but we need to get to the root of the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. A lot to talk about. Energy, yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about it, but no doubt reforms are needed. So we want to just be mindful of everybody's time. We said 8, but it's, what is it? 8:20, but we wanted to make sure everybody had a chance. So I would say if there's any last thought, any person that's done. Otherwise, everybody here is super responsive. I don't have to get the last word in, by the way. Jump in if anybody wants to. One tool, yeah, one tool I just forgot to mention that I wanted to relay to everybody is we have on the CGA website a really wonderful bill tracker system. So if you can put in the number of the bill, but you could also just put in the subject matter, like climate or something like that, and it'll identify the bills. In the next 2 weeks, all the bills are getting filed, and then it'll identify the bills. You can choose which ones to follow, and every time there's a public hearing that's scheduled on it, there's a vote that's scheduled, whatever, you'll be notified. And so if there's a bill that comes up you're interested in, you see, oh, there's a public hearing on it, then reach out to one of us, reach out to your state rep, your state senator, right? We can go with you to the public hearing. We can help make sure you don't have to wait for 7 hours to testify. We can do all sorts of things. We can go and support the bill along with you, et cetera. But let us know. We're your friend. We're your ally in that building. That building can seem crazy at times, right, and hard to understand. But we're here to help navigate you through that. So, anything you guys want to?
Just thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all for coming out.
Have a good evening.